Well, good morning, everybody. Travels with Dottie here, and I'm here talking to you about solar. In my comments, I had a recent solar question. I want a boondock out in quartzsite. How much solar do I need? And I promised to answer it the next day in my comments video, and I realized, there's a whole video in this answer. For people like me, I'm not an engineer. I didn't know I didn't know much about electricity when I first got my first trailer. I was quote boondocking. I was in a park that didn't have any electrical hookups, but I knew there was a battery, a one battery that the lights came on and everything, and I went to plug something in, and it's like, how come it doesn't work? I didn't understand the difference between a DC system that in the trailer and an AC system like you have at home. It was difficult for me to understand. And then when it started dawning on me that if I wanted to be able to plug stuff in like I do at home when I don't have an electrical outlet to plug things into, to plug the trailer into, I had to get beefier batteries and solar panels, and then the education process started. So there are a couple of ways, different paths you can go on. A simple one, which costs a little bit more money, and sometimes it lacks a little bit of flexibility. And then the other way to go costs maybe, depending on how you do it, it can cost less money, but it's far more flexible, but it takes a lot of expertise to do it. So that's sort of a pre-made solar system versus do it yourself. And I'm going to cover the basics on both today. But I will warn you, if you're expecting, like on the do it yourself, an instructional video on how to do it, not a chance I'm going to do that. In my mind, for me, it's beyond my expertise. It can be dangerous to try to build these things, and it can be dangerous, from physically dangerous. You can shock yourself. And more importantly, what happens more often is people put together a solar system, and you can start a fire if it's done incorrectly. So this is not the channel to find out how to do this. I'm going to talk about the basic design of it and what my experience was. So whether you're going down the path with the thing that's pre-made that I'm going to talk about, that doesn't need complex installation, versus the do-it-yourself, the same question remains for both. How much power do I need, right? Because you can go small or you can go enormous depending on the price. And here's what most people do. They start off with something small, like I did. I started out with, okay, the first time I went out, I bought a single lithium battery made by Battleborn. Years ago, it was like $1,000 a battery. It's come way down since then. And I think one solar panel. And I quickly discovered that wasn't enough. So it was one battery, 100 amp hours. Fast forward 5 years later, I'm sitting here in my rig with 700 amp hours. In over 700 amp hours. That's a huge battery pack. That's a whole nother story. But I built it up slowly over years because I started off the least expensive I could do and worked my way up to what my needs were. But there is a way that I'm going to show you today that you can calculate your needs. But first, let's get out of the way the two different ways to go. There's a thing called, the industry is calling it a solar generator. It's basically a unit that has everything self-contained. You hook you plug in a solar panel, it charges with the sun, and it has plugs in the front, and you can plug things into it in your RV, your TV, your computer. Some of them are big enough so you can plug your whole RV into it and run everything, but it has to have enough power and juice. And these things can run a little tiny one with a solar panel you can maybe get for $300, all the way up to 6, 7, 8. I've seen them $9,000 for giant ones with huge solar arrays. So in everything in between. What I'm going to show you here on the screen are 3 major brands, and these prices run from about $1,200 to $2,900. These 3, and they're different sizes. But all 3 of these, as you're seeing up on the screen now, you get the unit, the solar generator unit, and it comes with solar panels, and it's basically everything that you need. You just need to know what size do I need, right? And we're going to talk about size and usage, and we're going to start that discussion right now. And I'm going to try to distill my knowledge of solar that I've accumulated for myself, learning from other people over the past 5 years. So the first thing that you want to do is think about your solar system and electricity as a bank, right? And instead of dollars, you're depositing watts instead of dollars in the bank, and the bank is a battery. And that's why they call it. You ever heard that, a battery bank? Not a coincidence. It's a way to store watts. Right? And I'm confusing you already because you say, Rob, you were talking about your battery was 100 amp hours. That's you didn't say watts. Well, there's an easy conversion. They're 12 watts per amp hour. So my 100 amp hour battery times 12 had 1,200 watts of power stored in it when it's fully charged. So we're not going to talk about amps anymore. We're just going to talk about watts. But understand, amps and watts are interchangeable by that formula. And we're only going to be talking about 12 volt systems, and that can be converted, that energy can be converted to AC power, 120 volts. Okay. And that's what the prepackaged ones do. They'll take that DC power in the battery. They have a little converter in there that converts it to AC power. So you can plug your stuff in, your TV, your laptop, whatever, your whole RV. So how much in deposits do I need in the bank, right? Well, you need enough to run the things that you run, right? And how do I tell how much I pay to run a particular thing? Well, just about every electrical device has a rating in watts. For example, my microwave is 1,000 watts. Right? Does that mean if I plug it in, boom, I've used 1,000 watts? No, it's really watt hours. If I run my microwave for an hour, it'll use 1,000 watts over that hour. But usually, heck, I'm only using it for a few minutes. So it uses 16.67 per minute. You with me on that? 16.67 per minute. So if I use it for 10 minutes, I heat something for 10 minutes, what's that? It's 166 watts for 10 minutes. And that's the way it works. And you can see it if you have, like I have a way that I can see real time how much power I'm using, how many watts I'm taking out of my bank, and I can run my microwave, and I can see that if I do a 5 or 10 minute thing, it hardly moves the needle at all. If I ran it for an hour, it would suck down that one battery I had would be gone. All right. So there is the bank, and then how do you make deposits? How do you deposit into the banks? That is you do with the solar array, right? With the solar charging. So ideally, every 24 hours, with everything that I use during the day and at night, plus the deposits I can make with my solar panels during the day, I want to end each 24 hours with a complete charge. I'm still at 100%. If you start your battery bank at 100% and you go 24 hours and it's down to 90%, and you do the same thing every day, you're going to lose 10% day after day after day, where that's a deficit. Your bank balance is steadily going down, and you have to find a way to put extra deposits in it. And some people carry a generator to do that when the solar isn't doing enough. But for me, what I've done is I've built a solar system that 90% of the time it will refill those deposits. And let me show you the calculation. Are you ready? Scratch my eye real quick there. All right. So I divide up my usage of power into two categories. And the first category are, I've got some things that run 24 hours a day, just steady drain on the batteries. And one of them is my Starlink router and my Starlink internet services. I never turn that off. It runs 24 hours, and it does 65 watts. So every hour it takes 65 watts out of my battery bank. And then I have other things like things that I'm charging, and the LED lights and things of that nature take another 50 watts. So that's a total of 115 watts every hour, 24 hours a day. That's 2,760 watts every 24 hours. Isn't that, think about that. That first battery I told you about that I got when I first got, that was 100 amp hours, or convert that to watts. That was 1,200 watts. And I've already exceeded, I would have drained that battery long before 24 hours was up. We're up. But we're going to get to the deposits too when you have solar panels. So the other category of withdrawals are periodic withdrawals, just like a microwave. I'm not going to run my microwave 24 hours, but I am, for this purpose, I'm going to run it 10 minutes a day, and that's going to cost me 166 watts. And my TV, don't judge me, it's probably on 8 hours a day, 560 watts. So between the microwave, and sometimes it's my Instant Pot, sometimes it's my air fryer, but it's basically meal prep. And they're not exactly interchangeable with the microwave, but it's close enough. We're just going to say, so I'm going to run my microwave, and I'm going to run my TV. And so my total periodic draw for 24 hours there is another 726 watts, which makes the grand total of what I need to run all the stuff here that I want to run is 3,486 watts. So I need someplace to store the watts, and I need a resource, solar panels, to make deposits. So, and we're going to talk about winter and quartzsite. Why am I being specific with that? Because solar is much harder to harvest in the winter than it is in the summer. When the days are shorter, think about it, you have less daylight hours, and the sun is at a pretty low angle across the sky. It doesn't go straight over your head. It goes east to west, and it's almost, at a low angle to the horizon. So you have to account for less daylight hours, and also that low angle produces less. And I've figured out at what rate I produce electricity over those 8 hours on average when I'm out here boondocking in quartzsite. And here's the first thing that confuses people. You go out, okay, I'm going to go out and they sell solar panels by size. They'll sell you a 100-watt solar panel, 200-watt, 300-watt, 400-watt, and you can chain them together. But let's just talk for a minute about, I go out onto Amazon and I buy a 100-watt panel. So that means I stick it in the sun, and I'm going to get 100 watts in an hour out of that solar panel. No, 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 no. No, you're not. um, During on a perfectly clear day, no haze or cloud cover, and you have the sun directly at the correct angle on that solar panel, maybe for a few minutes in the day you can get that 100 watts, but you're going to get hardly anything in the morning, hardly anything late in the afternoon. But here's what I have determined, that in the winter, over 8, I'm going to count 8 hours of daylight during the day. I get 35% average out of that. So I'll get, at a 100-watt panel, I'll get 35 watts. Yikes, right? But those are my calculations. Now, I have a lot of solar. I have 1,240 watts of solar. And get this too, 700 of that I have on the ground, and it's at an optimal angle for this time of year, aimed south, and I don't rotate my panels to where the sun is because it's a pain in the neck, and to me it's not worth it. They're fixed out there at the right angle for this time of year. That's 540 or 700. Then on the roof I have another 540 of solar, but they're flex panels that are flat, so they would only do well in the summer. They don't do well at all, so the angle's terrible on there. Plus, because they're flat, and they're round like my AC unit and everything, they get shaded a lot, and if you shade part of a solar panel, it really degrades the performance. So my overall calculation is that with 1,240 watts of solar, I get 3,500 watts taken in, which is 35% of the total panel rating. So again, if you could buy one 100-watt panel, I'll get 35 watts out of that per hour. So I just took my whole solar array, over 8 hours. I looked into statistics. I get 438 watts per hour. So it's 438 times 8 gives me my total. So take the 438 times 8 hours, and I'm getting 3,504 watts in deposits. And what did I say I needed? I needed 3,486. So most days at the end of the day, when the sun goes down, my batteries are at 100%, and then they drain overnight, and they get down to, like right now, it's 752. And I can see there's a panel up there that shows me incoming wattage from all that solar. And right now, it just probably started a few minutes ago, 21 watts, which is nothing because the sun is still pretty low. It's early in the morning. And my battery bank went from 100% down to 81% overnight. Because remember, I got the Starlinks running all night, like charging my batteries and my phone charger. All that stuff is going on overnight. So that's the way that you can calculate, and hopefully my stuff on the screen helps you understand all that as well. Now, how do you build a system like that if I don't want to do what I first showed you, those sort of standalone units that are they're really ignorance proof, because there's only one way to plug in the solar panel, and the outlets are just like the outlets that you're used to, and a lot of people do that. And this math exercise will give you an idea of how big a one I really need. Especially, I will warn you that some of the bigger ones are expensive, and then they come with a couple of solar panels, and often it's not enough solar panel for the unit that they're selling you. But you can you need to pay attention to how much solar will it take? Because there are some limits in the specification. It'll say, how much in solar panels can I connect to this? Because often you can connect more than they send you in the package. Some people, what they send, it works just fine. But you do need to understand how much power that you're going to use to determine what size unit you have. Now, it's a little easier when you do it yourself, like I did. I started with one battery that had 1200 watts in it, and I've worked my way up over the years to 7 batteries times the 1200. I went to 8400 watts of storage, right? Which explains I got way more than I need, because look, it's 81% and I'm getting close to even. What do I mean by even? So I'm looking up on the wall here. I've got the solar's bringing in 25 watts, and I'm still dipping into the battery about 60 watts, which is basically half of what it was before the sun came up. And what'll happen over the next half an hour, the amount of sun that I'm harvesting will rise, and that'll eliminate that drop in battery percentage. It'll go even, and then as it gets along in the day, and it's sunny day today, it'll climb and climb and climb, and by mid-afternoon I'll be pretty close, if not at 100%. I know it's complicated, I'm sorry, but you didn't see nothing yet. If you want to do it like I did it, and I didn't do it myself, thank goodness I have friends that really understand how to do this stuff, do it right, and do it safely. Building a system has the advantage of it being really easily flexible. I can add batteries, and I can swap out components to make it bigger, better, faster. It's a big advantage, and it's the reason I did it that way. And back when I was doing it, these solar generators that I showed you at the beginning weren't as widespread, they weren't as big and robust, and they were even more expensive. Prices have come down. I might have considered doing it a different way had those things been available back then, but I kind of locked it into the DIY model. And I'm going to put up a chart here showing how it's put together, how you put together a system. And you're going to go look at that and go, whoa, what is this complicated thing all about? What are all those little components? Well, all those little components that you're seeing, those separate components in the solar generator kits I showed in the beginning, that's all built into the box, the battery box. It's all designed in there and stuffed in there together, so you don't have to worry about the components. This chart shows all the things that you have to install and install correctly with the correct size wiring, with the correct size fuses. They're never ending, it seems, levels of complexity to doing that. So this is not something, unless you have a real propensity to learn stuff and learn stuff right, this is not a project for a layperson. It's not a project for someone like me. So I'm lucky enough to have a couple of friends that really know what they're doing with that, and they basically installed this. I did not install my system myself. It was knowledgeable friends, and they taught me a lot along the way. They taught me how to think about it. They taught me to the extent where I could make this video and talk to you about how the whole thing works in terms that I could understand as a layperson that doesn't and still doesn't have a lot of real expertise in it. But I do know if you make a mistake on the size of wiring, if you have a mistake in the size of the fuse, or you don't put a fuse in the right place, if your connections aren't solid and tight, you can start a fire in your rig and destroy everything. So it's pretty serious business when you build your own. So again, the purpose of this chart wasn't to instruct you on how to do it. It was but to show you how complicated it is to do it right. And you can, if you don't have a good friend and you got some extra cash, you can go to a trusted solar installer. And here in Quartzsite, there's two. There's Discount Solar. They're both on Main Street, on opposite ends of Main Street. There's Discount Solar and Solar Bill. And they both have excellent reputations. And you can bring your rig in there and you can talk about your needs, and they'll do all these calculations that I'm talking about. They'll do all that for you. They'll say, well, what do you want to use during the day? You want to use the microwave? How often do you use the microwave? You want to run your air conditioning? Yeah, you can run air conditioning on batteries, but you need big beefy stuff to do that. But you want to watch TV? How many hours do you watch TV? Do you want to run a laptop? Do you want to charge your phones? Tell me all the things you want. You want to run a hair dryer in the morning, coffee maker, things of that nature. They'll ask you all those questions, and they'll do all those calculations that I talked about, and they'll say, this is ideally the size system that you need. Just one last twist, you can undersize your system to save money, and if you have a generator, you can use the generator to recharge the battery when there's not enough solar. Okay, so there's that too. So does it get complicated? Sure as heck it does. But I'm really hoping that my explanation of looking at the system, your batteries as a bank and watts as your deposits. Your deposits are coming from the solar panels. Your withdrawals are the electrical things you turn on and off, and not as well as the ones, right, that you use constantly. They're on 24 hours. I really hope that you got something out of this video, and this is the longest answer I've ever done to a comment. I mostly hope that this got to you. And who was the commenter? Hang on, I took a screenshot of it. It's Kathleen Ryan. I hope this was a good answer for you. Take care, and I'll see you on the next one.